This
It's
all?
Alicia and Chief of Fire and Mr. Barbeau. That's the
Okay.
third that you're missing on the screen, the third name.
Okay, we're just gonna wait 1 minute for Councillor Chris. We've done that for other councillors, so we'll wait a minute. Is someone communicating with Councillor Chris to let him know that the meeting is at 1? Conseiller Rowley, Conseiller Dan, are you communicating with Councillor Chris?
No, do you have a number for him? I can maybe give him a shout. Well, we're live, so yeah, let's not be giving numbers away there, but
I think Conseiller Rowley is either calling him right now because he's got the phone on at his ears.
Yeah, he's putting his computer on now, yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, in the interim, are there volunteers for the resolution that we need to adopt? Conseiller Yvon, puis Conseiller Alice.
I did not understand. I just sat down. I had to do something, so I don't know what you said my name. I didn't understand what you said, Madam Mayor.
Okay, well, I thought you had sort of given an indicator that you were a volunteer to move the resolution to adopt the agenda. I
am, yeah.
Okay. Okay, any news that Councillor Chris is having a technical problem? Because I have nearly 1:05 on my watch. Conseiller Alice.
Madame Mayor, I think we gotta wait. I think it's he was on the phone and he's got technical problems, so I think we gotta wait. I know.
Okay, I'm waiting for Conseiller Rowley. I see that he's calling him back. That's why I'm asking, is there any technical problem?
Yes, I'm finding out now. Chris? Okay, no, he's not hooked up yet. He's not hooked up to the meeting. Could you please check and see if he oh, he's trying to get in. Okay, thank you. Okay, passcode check. Okay, all right, bye-bye. He'll be joining. He's he did not have the right passcode, I guess.
There we go.
Oh, I see the number increased, so he should be,
Well, he's not on right. He's trying audio. Yeah, I think there's a, is it just his picture right now, but he's there. Here he is.
okay,
Hello, sorry.
okay, no problem. So welcome to another budget meeting, une autre réunion budgétaire. And we already have volunteers to move and second the resolution.
It is moved by Councillor Duhaime and seconded by Councillor Lee Senecal. Be it resolved that the agenda for the budget meeting of council held on March the 31st, 2021 be adopted as presented.
Any objections? Aucune objection? None? Are there any declaration of pecuniary interest? Aucune déclaration d'intérêt pécuniaire? None? Okay. So when we wrapped up from our Monday meeting, there were consensus to consider a 2% increase. And staff or CEO were going back to the drawing board to bring us back options. And we received the copy of the budget financial plan part 2 document later this morning. And I'll pass it on to Jay to walk us through that actual document.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. Obviously, this document probably, if you take it on a literal basis, there's going to be some people that are going to want to shoot the messenger. That's okay. The issue, though, and I'll go through them, is where we're at, and I just want to point a few things out. So, yes, I was asked to go back from Monday afternoon to this morning to look at what my recommendations would be to get to 2%, and I'll comment on some of the comments that were made on Monday, just to kind of clarify some of the points that were made. So, I renew the position that, in terms of financial advice for the ongoing sustainability of the organization, I think that we have to look at our own source revenues. But that we've passed that. So I hope we don't rehash debates, and there might be a look at user fees and stuff throughout the year as well. I recommended 3.7, and that was the difference between the 6.84, and that was that 555,000. That number now is larger because you've gone down to 2%, right? And so then the gap that needs to be found is, I think, 858,000 or something like that. So I just want to point that out. And I also want to point that out that you're talking about general levy increases, but you're dealing with an entire budget that's more than just the tax formation of it. So, your taxes are right now 17 million-ish and going to, to fund the difference, or high 17 million down to low 19 million. But your actual budget, your municipal budget is a $29 million budget. So when you're looking at raising your taxes by 2%, it's actually 1.2% of your entire budget. And I just point that out for people that are talking about cost of living increases and so on and so forth. We're not actually increasing, the budget. It's just that our ability to raise our own source revenue is that. So I want to point that out. The other thing I also want to point out as well, and I'm not here to debate anything. I'm just pointing out some issues. Is that you're a big organization, and big organizations take a lot of stuff to run, and some of those things. And the organization's weird in the sense that a lot of what you have is not within your control. And it's not in your control either by board or corporation, and there's legislative requirements. So there's very little discretionary spending that you have available to you when you're looking at things, other than taking serious strategic discussions for reducing budgets. But at that point, I think that those are council meeting discussions, facilities discussions, service review discussions, and the whole thing. What services are you willing to offer? there seems to, as I indicated several times on Monday, there doesn't seem to be consistency at the table, and that leads to frustration by all and your inability to come to a consensus. I was pleased to hear, regardless of the number, that there is a consensus of 2%, and so you're now it's just how to get there, right? So yeah, I bring out the general wage increases. That's not considering new positions. That's just our HR at 1.75% or 2, slightly under 2. The OSHA without putting what I funded originally with funding I indicated, but the mere ask of OSHA is and I understand that the people at the OSHA board working with their administrator, did everything to pare down as DSAB as well. And you got your police increases, which are, reasonable and everything else. So that actually amounts to almost the entire increase itself, just to give you an order of magnitude, or the normal amount. Then you get to the next page. And this is a statement I'm making, and I'm trying to be respectful, but I'm going to be blunt. We need to run the organization, and we need to have specific things in order to continue running the organization. You can debate it, but it's not going to change anything. You can disagree, but the fact of the matter remains is these issues are needed for the ongoing sustainability, and we've deferred enough, i.e. the building in Verner and that kind of thing. That's at a point now that you got to move. So the first points I'm making are those incremental issues that I was asked to list, but I'm recommending not touching. Then you get into the contentious issues of what is truly variable and what is an additional ask that really doesn't form us as part of our core operations. And so you look at, and I just put something, and I know it's colorful, but if you're going to go under an argument to indicate that, which was already agreed upon by the person conditionally, I suppose, to remove the 100,000 for the field school. But some of the arguments that were made is that we don't own it. Well, if you want to follow that logic, then I put the next two for you as well. Not suggesting that you want to cut them, but we don't own them. They're not part of our core business. It's an added value issue that you can remove if strategically you're collectively wanting to downsize the amount of services and the amount of benefits that you're offering your residents. Then those things are doable. Now, I do preface, and I'm not afraid to get shot down. I do preface that I'm putting these out there. I'm not owning them. I'm not suggesting that any of these cuts don't have a serious implication on the people who receive the benefit from them. And in fact, our entire $29 million budget is not spent willy-nilly. In fact, I think that we have enough of a track record showing you at audit time about our efficiencies relative to other organizations. So I don't really. We're not frivolous. And so there's those two items. Economic development, you talked about a reduction of 25,000 in community services, but if you're really looking to tighten it, we are having some growth. We are having record construction. We are having, without speaking to some of the specific initiatives that we are presently working on in industrial parks, down Main Street, or what the heck's that called? Front Street. Sorry, I draw a blank. We have some development going on, and at a fairly good pace. So if you want to put your economic development priorities in hiatus, then you can do that. You did, mind you, pass a resolution supporting it, but I'm just suggesting. Then I don't do this in isolation. We speak to the other staff members as well, and we do that obviously when we set up our budget, and we set up our budget specifically this year to be bare bones. But you've got things like flags, you got things like banners, you got beautification, you've got what else was in there? The Sturgeon Falls sign. These are things that if you want to postpone, you can postpone and you can reduce it, and that goes right down to your taxes. But it's just basically either making a decision to never do it or to postpone it. And my perspective is that council has not come together to decide whether you want to downsize or consolidate or continue under the present course of trying to be where you're at, joie de vivre and grow and do what we can. There's doctor recruitment. We're in a pandemic right now. I don't know how much movement there is or there isn't. I don't know where that money necessarily goes. Obviously, I know, and I was in doctor recruitment at the company I worked for previous to this, from Rayside Balfour, and I know that it goes on recruitment sessions to the teaching hospitals and so on and so forth, and there's marketing materials and there's support when they come here and that kind of thing. But it is something that is what they call a traditional or discretionary expenditure. Then you can get into some hard-nosed issues about whether you're ever going to be able to reopen the museum this year, given the pandemic and the 4th or 17th wave, depending on what public health official you're talking to, and these variants of concern, and whether our vaccines are even working for those things and all of that stuff. So, if you wanted to keep the museum shut for for this season, there's 70,000 there. And then shutting the Werner Arena down is another option if you want to consolidate. You basically made a statement that, given the fact that the chiller costs this and we're only getting that, maybe we should shut down sooner. Well, under that logic, if you want to shut that back to save some cost, for the rest of this season, there'd be a savings there, and we would consolidate. We probably lose some clients, but we can bring some clients over to Sturgeon and consolidate that. None of these are politically correct or achievable, or not. They're achievable, but they come with a community public price tag. And so, my position, if you ask me, is the same position that I had on Monday. It is a weird time, a weird year. There is a weird, with all due respect, council in the way that, the votes are going. And in my, my humble submission, I think I can get you to 2% without having to touch any of these things. There's some additional COVID funding that you didn't see in my first memo. So there's some additional things to get out of this year at 2% and have added bonus for the one-time funding that we have on the different things. If you want to continue, you can, but then I think that everything comes up for grabs, and then you're going to get 4 4s on a bridge, 4 4s on a school, 4 4s on a road out in Pine Poultry. So I'm trying to, again, have a compromising position here that can get you to an agreement, which you've already agreed to. The other 4 agreed to come down to 2. And so that's my position. I'd take any questions.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'll do a round table, and then we'll be able to proceed from this document. So I'll start with Conseiller Yvon.
Merci, Madame Mairesse. First and foremost, I hadn't had much time to study what you sent us, Jay, but there's a lot of things I don't agree with. But there's one thing I do agree with. It's the fact that we have to take a long, hard look at how we can streamline our operations, and that's in everything. And that's something we should be obligated to do at all times. In the last 2 years, we've increased taxes 10%. That's more than I've seen in the many years that I've been in council. So in essence, so when you increase it that much, it carries on forever. And we've had other communities in other areas who've managed to bring it down less than 2% in some cases. And I just don't see, Jay, I know you can do it. I know you can do it. You did it before, and I know you can do it. So I would suggest that we back into the budget, item by item, and hash it out, and come to a situation where we can all agree on. I am honestly thinking of the people out there and the hardships that they're seeing and foreseeing, And I think we have to understand that. That's the basic core of our taxes are from the people. And I think a lot of them can afford it because a lot of them have made a lot of money in this situation, but a lot of them have not. A lot of them have not worked. A lot of them had to compromise. And I think that is the key issue. And if it was up to me, never would I increase taxes more than 2%, because we should live within our means as far as an operation goes. And people have to understand that this is what it is and this is how it is to be, because we can't go on increasing taxes like there is no tomorrow, because sometimes for some people there'll be no tomorrow. And
So just a
Okay,
comment.
so we're not getting into a debate. I just want.
Well, I'd like to steer it so that the parameters are, I was asked to go to 2%. And if that's up for debate right now and we're reopening things, then I'm at a loss as an administrator to assist you any further than I can at this point.
Okay, and I was going to ask that question after everyone had the opportunity to provide their comment pertaining to what has been presented. And so,
Anyway,
Councillor Yvon, yeah,
I certainly have a problem looking at the issues and
okay.
and bringing it back up for discussion. Thank you.
Councillor Chris,
Okay, so I take issue with what Yvon just said. I moved down because somebody needs to be an adult in the room and get a budget done. The people in Field live in some kind of dystopian future because of Yvon's attitude, actually. Because, have you been to Detroit? Because it looks like Detroit, okay? So I gave up my $100,000 because in the future, maybe we're going to clean up Field and knock down the school and make things nice, okay? And I have a vision of West Nipissing that has services and is a nice place. And by the way, property tax is a regressive tax, okay? So your arguments about low taxes, property tax, they're wrong. They're wrong. It's a regressive tax. Look it up, understand it, okay? And if we are going to entertain this whole thing, lower taxes, whatever, I invite everybody up to Field to come and see what kind of dystopia I live in. Thank you very much.
okay, and let's be mindful that we all have an opinion and be respectful of everyone's opinion. That would be
That
great.
is being respectful. I could be
No,
very
no.
Yes, I don't agree for what he said. And you,
Okay,
Hey, Councillor Yvon,
21 years.
Councillor Yvon,
Because I lived
Councillor Yvon.
in that
Councillor Yvon, j'ai pas la mallette. Please abstain
But
right
all your
now.
money.
Councillor Yvon, put your mic, Councillor Yvon. Please, some order. We need to be able to get through a budget. And like I stated, let's focus on the numbers and focus on the action and not personalizing the issue. That should not be part of the equation. And let's be respectful of everyone's opinion. Conseiller Rowley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess at last meeting, we did say that we agreed to bring down, if Jake could bring us back to 2%, that things would be okay. And then there's the offer. He also said that we could have 2% without touching anything. And I guess this is where everybody should be happy because the way that he's done it. I think we should trust staff. They have the degrees. I'm sure if we have an accountant and the figures that she brings forward is always being questioned. And she is the accountant. Now, if you have better papers to bring to the table, then we should listen. But beside that, we have experts in every field, and we need to trust staff. And if we could bring the budget down to to 2%, like Jay said, then we should agree and then move on, because we're just not going to go anywhere, and it's the people of West Nipissing that's going to suffer for it. Thank you.
Conseil Leo?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Also, I agree with what Rolly said, and we asked the CEO to bring it back to, with the 2%, bring it down to 2% with his recommendation. And I mean, they've been working the last 2 days to bring the numbers down, and I agree. Let's move on. Let's accept the proposal and then move on. I mean, we can't just go with the flow just like this. No, I say move on and agree with the 2% with his recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Conseil Dan?
Thank you. Just as a point of clarification, the bottom part where we talk about the living community center, the winter maintenance, these are the areas where we could look at its cutting, but you don't have to cut it because of the fact that you found savings in other areas. Is that the assumption, right? My assumption, is it right?
Well, savings in other areas, you know, there's an inconsistency at this table with somebody who basically, I don't, you know, without poking people to get them overly angry again, who kind of wants to say, oh, that I want to spend this, I want to spend that, but then they don't want to spend it at tax time. And so there's an inconsistency with where you want to be. And, you know, when you talk about streamlining operations, you know, you can argue till you're blue in the face, but if you don't appreciate the resources that are being provided to offer the service, or either understand or respect or appreciate them, then yeah, you can streamline anything. But I can tell you as the administrator that's been here working, running this thing for 20 years, that's not the case. And in fact, the data and the performance measurements that you get from our accountants don't indicate that. If council wanted to have a real strategic discussion to say, oh my God, we can't go this, we're going to be downsizing, we need to restructure our operations for decline as opposed to growth, then I would take you there. But you don't have any consistent approach other than one person saying that and another person saying the 180% opposite. So what I'm trying to do is reach a budget that is a consensus budget that basically 4 people will have to agree with the other 4, and both groups of 4 are going to have to basically understand that this year is not a year that you're going to get to it. So I play chess. You want to move the pawns along. You're going to get a deadlock vote for everything, and then you know, and you're not going to be able to come to a decision. So I gave you an opportunity to come to that decision. And so, you know, there are some slight reductions that were found. This is a very difficult year to come up with reductions because of the uncertainty. The only thing that's uncertain, as I indicated, is the consistency of our service operations, which is Public Works Capital, Fire, Community Services, because they fix our buildings. The assistance that we absolutely need to manage this stuff, and as well as a garage that our public works manager, working with our structural person, Johnny Belanger, indicated that you know, we absolutely have to continue and fix this. It's an asset that we have, a little bit like the bridge. You know, that argument goes, well, so does a building that you know, that is condemned. So, you know, can I find reductions? Yes, but I think that they're affecting your core operations at this point. Sorry, Dan, if I rambled. Councillor, sorry.
No, thank you very much. Just the point to being is that it is hard to work without a strategic plan, and this council has not had a strategic plan from the beginning. And failing that, we're moving all over the place, pulling the rug from one side to another side. So that's played against us from day one. We never got to sit down and have a strategic plan. And where I came from in my past, it was one of the pillars of your organization. Saying that, I don't think that we should be reopening line by line because we have professionals doing that work for us. They did that for us. They went for it. They looked through the whole process, and this is what they came up with. You just can't reopen it again, because if we reopen it again, then Councillor Yvonne, you would be looking at all your capital, the capital expenditures under Public Works that we've already more or less approved. And that doesn't make sense. And the thing is that I would like to see some of us put some water in their wine and come to the 2%, because that's what we agreed upon. And at that last meeting, I made the comment, my final comment was, I hope that we don't come to the table and then we start saying that we're going to be lower than 2%. I think the other people around the table said that there was a consensus. If you can get us to 2%, we'll be happy. We'll pass the budget. We'll move forward. So the thing is that this is something that we have to work for. And I know I've had discussions with people in between these two meetings, and people are starting to say, come on, let's get working together. And I have a problem with reopening anything. So thank you.
Conseiller Denis.
Thank you, Madam Mayoress. The idea of reopening is not an issue. I think it is. I think there's lots of room to find savings. And I don't listen to the accountants. I listen to my residents. And every time I speak to my residents is, how come I'm paying so much tax and I'm not getting the services? So I think the residents are going to listen and see that it's time to lower the taxes, and to be at 3, 4, 5 is not acceptable. There's a lot of people on pensions, and a lot of people laid off. We have to back up the tax collections, because people are having a hard time. So I think it's our duty as council, and that's why we were elected. And that's why we need to go back to the drawing table and get a decent 2%. Everybody should have some input in that budget. And it doesn't seem that we are having the input that we need. So that's my comment for now.
Conseiller Ali.
Oops, I'm on. Sorry. Well. I think they're talking. We all agree on the 2%. That's very clear. I don't think that changed. I don't think we were giving two very comprehensive document that was made by staff, well made by staff, and it was line by line. There's no two way about it. It was line by line. And and this is why I don't get what's happening today, because most of the thing that we discussed there was in principle approved. As far as a comment I can make about a strong comment was made Monday, blah, 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 we don't own. Well, when you put $40,000 at Lavigne Community Center, it's not for a facility, it's for operation that we've been supporting, the same as the food bank, the same as Feed Isabelle helping. So there's a lot of things, you're right, Jay, in the budget that have nothing to do that we don't have to support, because they're not facility or they're not capital project, and the list go on. There's a lot of things like that. So at this point of time, I don't want to go back, and like I said, everything with public work has been dealt as far as operation, and not operation, but the capital size we had, I hate to call it a vote now because I don't know what I voted, but we had kind of an agreement on it. I don't agree. I agree the 2%. I agree there is thing that was identified then, and it was there, and it will not jeopardize the services that we have next year. It will not jeopardize that. And it's not forgotten, it's not gone forever, but at this point of time, it just can be delayed for next year. And next year is coming. It's an unknown for everybody, like everybody, every year that we do a budget, we don't know when we say it. Next year is going to be a bad thing. And yes, next year might be a bad thing, because like Councillor Dan mentioned, he's aware that there's probably a big race with DSAB and the health, but there's also the police station. There's also a lot of things that we don't know how much it's going to cost us. So at this point of time, I received the report, and that's my comment on that report.
Thank you. So, Cozy, Chris, do you have a question or is it another comment? Because if it is a comment, I'd like to be able to have the opportunity so we can move on to the next step.
Comments, fine, go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to say, just summarizing everything. There seemed definitely a consensus that the budget is reduced from 3.7 to 2%. I also appreciate all the information that we're given. The fact that we're questioning and getting clarification nowhere, and I want to highlight that it's not a reflection of not trusting staff. Staff are efficiently and effectively doing their duty and providing us with the required documents for us to be able to proceed in determining a budget. And I'll be the first to concur that, yes, it is a difficult year. And it is difficult. It's not a secret. We're living a pandemic. We're living with the unknown. And also the fact that, you know what, we're not all on the same page. Yeah, there might be issues, you know, about the 4, but there has been some consensus that has been beyond 4 on issues that we agreed to. Now it's getting to an action where we're going to be able to agree. So I guess the first question that I'm going to be asking to members of council, we got suggestions, recommendations, part of this draft document, plan number 2, and with the list identified of issues that could be either removed from our budget, I'd like to see who agrees with the proposed recommendation.
Oh, can I just everything was great up until I'm not proposing anything. I'm just highlighting if you wanted to go there. I certainly, as a staff member, I'm not recommending those adjustments because, as I said, they have a political variable component and there's a negative impact to all those expenditures on those who you remove it. Some may be less than others, but they're just options.
Okay, appreciate it, Jay. So I guess maybe I'll rephrase my question. Who's in favor of going there based on the itemized list from the plan presented today? Who is in favor of going there? That's what I want to find out from members of council. You all had the opportunity to read that document. Are you in favor of going there with the issues that have been identified? Can I see a show of hand? So that means...
I still don't understand your question, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
Are
Je vais
we-
le
are we
demander en
accepting-
français. Je vais le demander
Are
en
we-
français.
If
Laisse-moi
I may clarify, are you asking if we are agreeing to what staff has brought forward for us to reach the 2%?
Okay, sort of, but then I want to clarify the usage of my words. As the CEO mentioned, those are options that was identified on the document. They're not recommendation by staff. They are options. And I'm asking members of council is, do you favor in looking into those options? That's what I'm asking as far as a decision. Est-ce que c'est plus clair, conseiller Rowley? Il y a des options qui ont été identifiées sur le document. The options that have been identified. Stop subsidizing le centre communautaire de la Vigne. Eliminate the issue about winter service agreement for roads. Shutting down one arena for a season or a later start of one of the arenas. And the list goes on. So I'm asking, they are not recommendation, but it was identified. Those are options that council can explore to bring the budget down to 2%. So are members of council interested of going with the options that have been proposed on the document? Yes or no?
Not at this time, Madam Mayor, if I may.
Okay, well, that's what I'm asking. So you say no, but I want to see how other members of council feel with that question. So we can move forward, okay?
I got a question because clarification. I think I understand, but now, okay, so let's say this document, I think there's option, but if we don't agree to go through that, that's meaning it means what? Can somebody explain that to me? So we gotta be
that's
voting on something. We're making a decision that if we say no to the option, we're not looking at the document because I don't know, I don't understand.
Okay. Maybe, and I'll ask Jay to help me out once I've clarified, and I'm going to try to keep it very simple. There's additional issues that were identified on the document that are part of the operational issues, okay? Which we have already in the budget, and they've been there previous years. And we see the list in front of us. Now, do we want to consider moving forward in discussing those issues? That's what I'm asking. The next step to that, if we don't want to consider those issues, then we have what we were provided as far as subsequent additional capital projects. And then we also have the budget workbook with the increases within the budget workbook. So I think I'm trying to eliminate issues so we're not all over the map.
We also have, Madam Mayor, what our CEO brought forward, saying that he could bring us down to 2% without touching anything.
Well, you have to touch something.
Okay, so you know what? I'm trying to do the piecemeal in the question. So if you can answer one question, we can move on to the second question, which will be to reduce by 2% from other sources of funding. But instead of just, so I think, is it clear the first issue, the first question, I want to be able to find out from members. Okay, you know what? I'm asking a question, but I can't get a sense of an answer. And then we're jumping to another question. Jay?
Well, you know what? Sorry, to backseat drive, I thought you were doing a swimming job, Your Worship. The question that you posed was, does anybody want to entertain any of these options, in terms of discussion as to whether you want to carry out with any of the reductions that are listed? There was, let me just assume for a minute, there was a blank with respect to not sure I want to do those things. Okay. So therefore, there would be two other options. Therefore, the CAO / the treasurer / the finance people that you revere, would basically give you the ability to fund all of what is being put here under other means, either surplus, additional COVID money, and what have you. So if you don't want to reduce your operating expenditures, which my opinion, I'm going to generalize, but I do take exception to us and them kind of thing. With this idea that administration has these nefarious games that they want to add stuff. We don't really actually care. I get paid every 2 weeks, pensionable earnings. So these are issues that we bring forward as a representation of what we think council wants, what the community wants, what we will need to do given our assets going forward, and when and how we can fund them. And so my recommendation is you can get to a budget with a bridge, with an additional road, with this, that, the other thing, additional security for the Eau Chateau going forward, with without touching anything. But if you want to touch things or go over, I'm not 100% sure you'd have consensus or majority consensus to go line by line. And my comment to that is you have the line by line document. Feel free to ask a question about any line whenever you want. But to review the conversation, I bluntly speaking, I've gone through it myself, knowing you want to cut. And my recommendation is I could not find anything that I would feel comfortable cutting and holding that line without major service change. So these are the variable options that I bring forward. Councillor Lees does bring forward a few other things. I didn't go that that, you know, the Phoebe's at bed. My God, I don't want to put that on a memo. But, you know, you are right. Any other contributions that you give to other sources, you could you can do that. But I'm a little concerned about that. Nor do I recommend. I think the CCL is a great community asset, and I know what would happen if you did that. I'm not recommending it. I'm just listing it as options. So my view is if you're okay with this, and you don't want to entertain shutting down the CCL, winter maintenance of private roads, I think much further discussions have to happen. I think Deb, you've made a moral commitment. In fact, I think you passed the resolution.
I know we're going back through the document, and I was trying to get a consensus, you know, from members of council.
Okay, I'm just trying to help you out. So your original question was fine.
And that's where I wanted to get a sense of direction from members of council, and I didn't see anyone other than Conseiller Broley saying, no, I don't want to rehash all the items that have been identified on that memo. That's what I heard. And the issues identified on the memo are a multitude of operational commitments that have been done in the past and part of our operational budget. And the only person that said no is Conseiller Broley. And then I was going to ask subsequent to that.
No, ask the question,
Conseiller Dan, Conseiller Lise.
Dan, your mic.
The fact being that there was silence is because people were not sure what you were asking. So the point being is that Councillor Rowley asked you the question on what you were asking. So as I'm trying to state, nobody had the chance to even answer your question.
And I clarified the question for Conseiller Broley, and then he said no.
But you didn't reintroduce it, Madam Mayor.
Reintroduce it. We were still on the same question. But anyway, that's the answer. Conseiller Lise.
Okay, Madam Mayor, I think you should ask the question because I did follow the conversation, and again, we're almost an hour in a debate that we're losing. So can you ask the question that you at the beginning asked if we were interested of entertaining to look at those things? I think that's the summary of what your question was.
Well, thank you for rephrasing the question. And I'll leave that question as simple as what you phrased it. So is council interested in considering what has been presented to us today? Conseiller Yvon, you have a question?
Madam Mayor, that's first and foremost, I'd like to excuse myself to council and to you and to the administration for my outbursts. I feel, and I please forgive me. And to answer your question, Madam Mayor, I think all options should be on the table and all options should be looked at. And I had no problem.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the apology. So I'm going to make paraphrase your answer to be no, that you're not receptive to what's being presented now. So,
well, Madam Mayor, I am receptive. I said
okay.
We should look at all options, even if it includes the list of today.
Okay.
Thank you.
Coming back to the question, who's in favor of what's been presented today? I'm keeping it very simple.
Sorry, can I ask a question?
No, I'm asking an
I
answer.
can't ask the question.
You can ask the question, but you know what? What is the question about? Because I'm asking a question.
You're asking the question about. So are we talking about DSAP, police, libraries, animal control, insurance? And are we talking about shutting the Verna Arena?
No.
Is that what we're asking?
Okay, no, we got a document presented to us today. Okay, the document are not recommendations, they are options. Who is in favor of what those options are? Who's in favor of accepting what's been presented as options?
That's it.
Okay, that's as simple as it can be. And I'm asking that question. And I mean, it's very simple, Conseiller Dan.
No,
Who is
No, it
in
isn't, Madam Mayor. Excuse me, Madam Mayor. I think Councillor Lee's explained it a little bit better. What you're asking is whether we want to go line by line on these recommendations. Yes or no? I think that's what you said, Councillor Lee's.
No, if I may, that's not what I said. What I said is, are we in agreement to looking at the option that was presented today? I don't want to go line by line on everything either, but we're talking about this document. We're not talking about the rest. We're talking about the option that was presented today. And this is what happened when everybody talk, including myself, about something, we get lost. But it's about the option that was, so meaning, like she described, are we in agreement to look at the community center? Are we in agreement to look at trying to find the page that it was?
Okay, so you know what?
Maintenance.
Thank you, Conseiller Lise, for clarifying. And the question,
Madam, may I speak?
you know what? The chair is going to be asking a question and give me direction, and then we can speak on any, you know, what council wishes to discuss. There's the document that's provided to us. We have a list of options that we can consider to reduce within the operation. Okay. And then we have the option of taking additional revenues to offset to bring it down to 2%. So I'm going to keep it very simple. I'm going to break it down into those two questions. First question, do you want to consider any of the options of going back and looking at further options that we have not discussed, which is part of the document provided today? We got the document. So I see Dan saying no. Conseiller Broley, is that
No,
a yes or no?
No, if I may, things could change by what people are agreeing on. What I would like to see, what I would like to see is, do we agree that we could have 2% without cutting anything? Jay said that he could find money in COVID, and he just stated that. So if we are in agreement with this, that answers everyone's question on what we agree, we don't agree. If we agree at 2%, like we did at last meeting, if we meet the 2% and it satisfies everyone with the money that Jay can find somewhere else.
So let me.
Okay.
Can I intercede? Yeah, I think, in fairness, the mayor's chairing, and the mayor is basically asked whether we want to entertain some of those discussion options, that whether council has an appetite to discuss any of the options. Your original point was a no. Yvonne's original point was a yes. And by your no, there's an implication that you're satisfied. And by the yes implication, there's an implication that Yvonne wants to dig further. So the question that was posed by the chair is, do you wish to entertain these options? So far there's one yes and one no. And if you just poll them, those who want to dig further are yes. Those who basically say, no, we're satisfied with this option, which is what the mayor's question was, then no, we don't want to entertain these options. So it's no, I don't want to entertain the options. Yes, I want to dig further. That's what she's been trying to get to for the last 25 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Chris, yeah, Lise?
Chris, your mic is off.
May I speak?
Yeah, that's what I think you got the floor.
Okay, so I begrudgingly, because I have some real concerns about the future, and I have a different vision. We're all different. So I begrudgingly will agree to this. But if we have to go through these items and you want to argue one by one, we can be here the whole year. I will agree to 2%. I will not agree to other things, and I will not sit here forever because it's against my better judgment. So I have folded for the corporation to get somewhere, and I just want you to know that. So take your pick. Thank you.
And thank you for your comment, Councillor Chris. And I think that it's the same objective for all members of council, because we wouldn't be attending these meetings if we wouldn't have the same perspective and the same goal. And you know what? I'm going to reserve my personal comments. I'm saying, I don't want to get into personal issues. I want to focus on the facts, Councillor Elise, and then we're proceeding with a vote.
Okay, well, you know what? I think one thing that Jay said, it's perfectly all right. Do we agree on the option? And that was the first question you asked, and we all jumped in. Not all, maybe. I'm not going to put a blanket. I think that's the question. My thing is, I think, yes, I can agree that to find a 2% somewhere else, but I want to know where before I agree to where. This is not the way there is thing that was identified in that budget that we can simply go. I don't want to go to every page, every item, but there were items that we can go without this year, like I said. So the first question, we agree with the option that was provided that we can look into it. I think that's simple. I think they were a yes and a no so far, and ask the question again and count the vote. And then the 2%, we all in agreement. So it's all we got to get the 2% that I think we need to know where, and we have the right to know where that 2% would come from. So am I right or wrong?
No, that's correct. That's correct. So there's Yvonne that basically wants to have more of a say pertaining to issues within the budget.
That's not the question, Madam Mayor. The question is, do we agree that we're not touching the option at the table? Yes or no? And can make a decision on that.
Thank you, Councillor Elise.
Sorry, but
I'm going to ask that. The question has been asked, and I'd like to be able to see who supports with the options that are being provided with the document that's provided to us today. Who supports what's being provided today?
I just want to be a spoke in the wheel a little bit, because if you're opening some things, I think there's an assumption of non-supporting cutting with an assumption that it's fundable somewhere else. But that if you start reintroducing other things, then the councillors that may have said that may want to now reintroduce some of those issues that are back on the table. So I know that's confusing, and I know it's stressful to get to a point.
You know what? It is not confusing. We got a workbook. We got capital projects. The increases that are proposed in the budget are basically the increases that council has to deal with. So I've never heard throughout the budget process that we wanted to start discussing strategic having, from what's being presented on this sheet, there's a lot of strategic discussions, and those strategic discussions need to take place at council. And that's what we've been told for other issues that have been identified with other departments.
Well, the only two strategic decisions on this list that could be discussed at council on a big picture are just the last two. The other ones are line items.
Okay, but I'm coming back to the question, who is in favor of what is being presented as far as the options today? Who is in favor of what is being presented today? Can I see a show of hands of those that do support it?
Mayor.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I'm voting on it.
Councillor Lees did bring a good point. Is where would that money? Jay said that he could bring us down to 2%. So where would that money? Jay, could you answer that? So that way, because
the question has been paraphrased by me several times. Identified by Conseil Elise several times, identified, even simplified by our CEO, And there's still a resistance, you know, to be able to show a hand, to show who's in favor of the options provided today. So if I don't see a show of hands, I'm going to make the assumption that there's no appetite.
Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, can you just go around? Madam Mayor, can you, to bring this to a conclusion, can you just do what you started to say? Ask Yvonne whether it's yes or no. Ask Chris yes or no.
Thank you. I really appreciate that suggestion. So Conseil Yvonne, are you in favor of what the options proposed today?
I'm in favor of looking at some of the options, not all of them.
No, Yvonne, je veux savoir oui ou non. If you say yes, it means that basically
Yes,
you are in favor of what's presented today.
not in favor of all of it, but I'm in favor with some.
Okay, so you know what? With maybe, with some and not, I'm going to say it's a no.
No, I gotta say it's a yes. He said he's in favor of following it, Madam Mayor, so.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, his comment is a yes. I don't think the options are taking in their entirety. What he's indicated is that he would look at some of them and entertain some and not all, which is basically what you're asking. Do you want to entertain them? And he's saying, I'm willing to entertain it. He might say yes, yes, no, no, yes, no kind of thing. Okay, so he's a yes.
Okay, Conseil Denis?
What about me?
Well, if we're gonna go through all the option on this page, that means we're gonna open up the whole budget because there's some stuff on the budget that I would like to go line by line. This is a line by line issue. So let's open up the whole budget. Let's go back and let's find our savings there, not on this little page here. That's not an option here. But if you vote for that, we're gonna be going to open up the budget for everybody, for all the lines.
So,
Madam Mayor, can you just continue with the vote, please?
but it's, Councillor, it's not clear. Okay, I'll wait my turn.
I'm more confused now because right now there's 2 yes of going back into this and review line items from what was proposed.
Okay, so continue.
That's what I have. I have 2 that want to review.
Yep.
Okay, then, okay, the next is Conseil Rowley.
No,
No,
Councillor-
sorry, Conseil
It's a no.
Chris.
It's a no for me.
Conseil
Okay.
Chris.
So my position, and I've made it clear, and I've already made a concession. I've made more than one concession. My position is that I will agree to the 2%. I do not want to go and relitigate everything line by line. If we relitigate everything line by line, I'm gonna have an opinion, and it's gonna take the rest of the year. Thank you.
So that's a no.
Okay, thank you. I can keep track. And
Mine is a no.
Conseil- Oh, no? Okay, thank you, Conseil Rowley. I thought you were making the interpretation of the comments made by Conseil Chris, sorry. Conseil Dan?
Madam Mayor? Councillor Leob first.
Okay, I know, but you know what? Okay, Conseil Leo?
No.
Conseil Dan?
No.
Okay. And you know what? Conseil Alice? T'es sur mute.
So what am I voting on? Option or opening all the budget? Because that's 2 different things. So,
Well, you know what? They have been combined. So if you say that you want to look at options,
well, it should not be combined because that was not the issue today.
That's right.
So
well,
we look at option that was put on the table, yes or no, or we don't look at them. We don't,
but
and then the second question is the 2%. We all in agreement of the 2%. And what I want to know, where is the 2% was going to come in and what will be cut in the budget or where the money will be provided? I think it's a simple question. And I think, so
I'm not asking the question for the 2%.
Okay, I'm going to vote. I'm going to tell you what I'm voting right now. I'm voting that I don't want to look at the option that was posed on that table today, which means the EDC, the road, the maintenance of the road, and the community living and whatever else that was put,
Okay.
closing the arena. I don't vote
Okay.
for that. No.
You're saying no, let's go, huh? I'm
Yeah.
saying no also, Madam Mayor.
Okay, so the question is very different then. I mean, if people are voting on a different,
No, they're not.
Jay?
No, they're not. I
They're
mean,
not.
what you're doing, Madam Mayor, is valid. And like, there isn't a real difference here. What you have is a document that basically had some options in it, and in those options, they're voting no. Now, there's another question that you want to put on the floor, because the second phase is, okay, given that you're not looking at that, is there an appetite to go back and revisit line by line is the next question, and then that's a yes or no answer.
And you know, those are exactly the two questions that I wrote down.
That's right,
since
yeah.
day one, which I wanted to go to.
That's
So
how it
the
is,
option,
yeah.
the
Yeah.
options that have been provided, no.
Right.
Now, the subsequent question to that would be, who is willing to look at other measures or other line items within the budget to reduce it to reduce it to 2%?
That's the question.
And that's where I'm going to do a roundtable, and I'm going to be asking every member to vote on that issue. Okay, so
Make a comment?
just a second, Conseiller Chris, before asking a question, because I want to get that question, because it's going to be another half an hour just to get an answer to a specific question. So, just to make sure, est-ce que il y a les membres du conseil qui ont la volonté de retourner au budget de les documents qui ont été présentés pour trouver des épargnes pour le réduire à 2%? So,
Yeah, so ask one at a time.
so how do we get to that 2%? Because there's two options on the table. One option for the 2% is to look at the funding, just strict funding as what Jay proposed, right?
Right, but your question, Madam Mayor.
No, but
Yeah,
I
but
don't
so I
want.
can, you asked the question and I can answer you. Your question, you know, there's a
So-
bunch of there's a bunch of nuances. Your question is, who wants to reintroduce a line by line review of the budget and then have a yes or no on that?
Oh.
If that is defeated, then I would suggest to you, the next one is if there are specific questions that you have, without going line by line, but some people have raised the fact that they haven't had their day in court, then raise those issues and have them responded to and discussed.
Okay,
So it doesn't necessarily mean that you don't get your thing, but so
no,
ask the question, who wants to
And-
go line by line is the next question.
and you know what? I don't think it's the line by line and rehashing everything throughout the 8 or 9 meetings that we've had. There's an issue here. There's a recommendation or an option, not a recommendation, an option that we can go from 3.7 to 2% by grabbing additional revenues. That was an option that you gave us, Jay.
That was the
So-
option I'm recommending, yes.
That's right. So I'm going to be asking the question is members of council, do they agree with that option? And if they don't agree with that option, it means that there's probably going to be some specific option. The other option would be to look at specific items.
Well, that wasn't the question
No.
posed, but
Conseiller Lise,
Okay,
Conseiller Craig.
I know that we all we all mixed up, but I think what we're trying to say here, the next question should be, do we want to go line by line? And after that, they will have another option to be. We all agree right now that it's a 2%. We want something, everybody agree under the 2% increase. Everybody agree that they are not for the option that was proposed that to look at it, okay? The third question is, do we agree today to go line by line? And after that, it will be okay, like Jay said. So we don't agree to that. We still agree on the 2%. So all we got to do it so we can propose where we see the cut. That's the way, the summary. And I have to say that sitting back here, it's a lot easy to try to put everything together, to try to control all of us and get all the feedback and do it the right way. So far, I think you're right to ask the question, Madam Mayor, do we all agree to go line by line? And if if it said no, well, obviously they have to be another question, because we need to know where that 2% is going to be giving from. That's clear. Am I wrong or right to assume that?
Well, you are right, but the first
I
option.
totally agree. I totally agree with you. Lise.
The first
Councillor Lee.
option, the option that was provided on the document was to reduce the budget to 2% by grabbing additional money, funding. So, and
So could I propose that we have the question put forward, do we want to go line by line?
okay, I'll ask that question.
Yeah, Mayor, I've had my hand up for a while and they're speaking
Okay,
over my hand here.
Conseil Denis, Conseil Chris.
I just want to know if we're going to vote to not go line by line over here and not go line by line on the budget we've went through, where are we going to find the 2%? So why doesn't staff come back with their options for 2%? We don't need to vote on these issues because we're going to cancel our options if ever we want to go back line by line. If we can't agree, we'll have to go back line by line. So let's get staff to bring back 2% options.
Well, the 2% option, to clarify, Conseil Denis, dans le document qu'on a été présenté, c'est que l'administration recommande qu'ils peuvent le baisser par 2% en prenant des argents d'autres sources. Ça, c'est qu'est-ce qui nous a été présenté. Vous avez dit non au document qui nous a été présenté.
Qui nous amène d'autres options, c'est ça que je demande, qui amène d'autres options qu'on peut les regarder. Pourquoi qu'on vote, là?
Because common sense, you know what, I'm going to be straightforward. If council doesn't agree to the options provided on the document, it means that we don't agree supporting grabbing 2% from additional revenues. So that means at the end of the day, how do we proceed to bring it down to 2?
That's
So,
not accurate.
No,
okay,
No,
it's not
council-
accurate.
No, there's two options on the memo. I wrote it. One of them is, what I was proposing to do in the first memo to get you to a consensus for 3.7. What I indicated is that I had a look at different options to reduce it. The only thing that came down in the entire discussion from the 3.7 was the $25,000 that was raised by both you and Lise for ECDEV, and the $100,000 from Chris to say, okay, we'll subsidize that. So my view is take that down, and that takes it down to 3%. And then the remainder is what I would be funding through the additional COVID money. Now, so I think Councillor Senecal, Lisa's question was the question that was on the floor, whether there's an appetite to do that, to go line by line or whatever. And that was what seems to be the appetite from the committee to vote on right now. And then at that point, we can discuss future steps at that point, whether there's an agreement for future steps. So.
Yes, you quote me. Can I be talk because you quote me on what I was saying? Can I talk to
Yes,
Jay?
Councillor Lise.
Okay, Jay, you're right what I was saying, but I mean I want to be clear because there's a portion that I don't understand. I don't want to go line by line, and I made myself very clear, but I do want to know where whatever the remaining of the money will come from. And I mean, there is something that we can propose that, and we'll see what's going to happen. There is thing that is not, like I said at the beginning, that we can wait till next year in my mind, but I can propose it. Doesn't mean it's going to be accepted. But I mean, I don't want to go line by line. I don't want, we vote on one option right now. It's something is done. So, but I don't want to vote and say, no, not line by line, that we close the fact that we cannot suggest where we think that the 1% is coming from, because that's about what you're talking right now, because we're down to 3%, right?
Right.
Okay,
So-
so are we closing the door to all of us proposing some place that where we can cut?
No, it's a council meeting. Council was provided with a fairly extensive document with an explanation all the way through. If council in their minds have some ideas where they think that they don't want to have it, they can pull those out and reduce and have a look at it. I just caution you that when you want to, pull everything apart, you're not going to reach a consensus budget, and you're not going to reach a budget. You're not going to get a vote at council to a certain way. But certainly, if you want to highlight certain things and get an explanation as to why they're there, or do they really have to be there, and what will happen, you bring those up. But right now, the question is, there's no question, but the question is, do you want to go and reintroduce and open up the budget line by line? And my recommendation or thought is that that's not going to be a productive exercise. Your staff know what they need to operate.
And I think that's the point that requires clarification. I'm hearing that there's an appetite possibly to discuss some issues within the budget, but then I'm also hearing that people are not interested in doing this. And then there's also the option of grabbing money from extra revenues. So I think it's the definition of the line by line versus maybe specific issues that are part of the budget.
Right.
And where does council, or when does council have that opportunity, or are they going to be removed that opportunity or not have the opportunity to highlight those issues? That's what I'm hearing right now. Because there seemed to be an appetite. Conseiller Yvonne's mentioned it, Conseiller Alice mentioned it, Conseiller Denis mentioned it. They may have some specific scenarios that, or either clarification or issues that they don't agree with. But then if you call it to a vote and say, no, we're not going line by line, what I'm hearing is council is excluded from the process and being able to address any issues that they may have concerns with.
Right, and I don't want to
Correct.
exclude council. And at the end of the day, I need a vote that goes 5-3 at a council meeting.
And that's where we want to go, but
So
I'm asking
Right,
a
so-
question here.
And I'm answering your original question to me. Your original question to me is, will you automatically block councillors from asking questions about the budget? Well, that obviously doesn't make any sense, because if I did, there wouldn't be any opportunity to get a budget approved at council, right? And so what I would propose now is that if you want, instead of having this vote, if I can get, and we'll organize another meeting, I just have to find when, if I can get a list of having all the documentation, having a list of certain councillors of what they would like to question or challenge, and we can put that as a synopsis document, because if you're asking me to go find it, obviously we wouldn't have set a budget. We wouldn't have set a budget wanting these expenditures. So asking me to say I don't need something is probably problematic. Asking me to get convinced I don't need something, that's fine. But why don't you folks list what you have a problem with in the budget, and then I can list that, and that can be a discussion piece for a future meeting.
Yeah, that would be fine with me.
And I think this way it would give the opportunity for everyone. Conseiller Dan, Conseiller Denis.
I was going to just say that is a process that we used at the health unit. When the budget came out, there was some of the issues that people were concerned with. What they did is they wrote it down, they sent it to Dr. Chirico. Dr. Chirico provided it to his finance person. She had a look at it and had an answer for them. And there was a discussion at that time. But the thing is I am totally against the whole concept of reopening every line object. Because, Yvonne, we've already approved capital budgets under Public Works. We can't go back.
And I'm not hearing the appetite of going back line per line. I'm hearing maybe possibly issues of to be brought back or discussed, and maybe, the suggestion of sending everything to our CEO, and any issues that more info is needed or that's being challenged, and that everything is packaged together, and then we can debate, we can have those discussions. And from there, there has to be some consensus that's going to come around from it.
I think that's a better solution personally. Otherwise, we're going to have gridlock. there.
Yeah.
That's right. Conseiller Rowley?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In the meantime, we do agree that we, to bring it down to 2%. The CAO brought us a solution to that 2%. So maybe we should vote on that 2% with the solution that our CAO brought. And if there are some issues down the line that needs to be addressed, like you said, councillors could write, and then we could discuss it, and it'll probably bring it down farther. But at least let's approve a budget of 2% so our staff can move forward.
No, we cannot do that.
You know what? The budget has to be, we need to approve a final budget. And when we approve that final budget, it has to be done through resolution. And to be able to get to that resolution, this is the final stage of the process. And right now, staff have been doing their part, but for them to start identifying what are the issues for any council members or any line item that one wishes to challenge or doesn't agree or needs more information, it's the time to do so. We can get to a consensus, and the next phase would be to have a final budget where we adopt that resolution.
But we already said that at 2%, everybody would be in favor. And if there is any savings, okay, that could go into it could be put aside. It could be put aside.
In fairness, though, Councillor, when you're having a resolution approving the expenditure estimates, you need to know what they are.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just, I don't think there's a need right now. I think there is obviously a 2%. I don't think that's going to go. I think,
That's not going away.
That's not going away. I think if we can just move this thing forward, send me your list of questions, comments, challenges, disagreements. I'll synopsize a document for everybody as a discussion paper. If that's my recommendation.
Yeah,
And I support that. Conseiller Chris, Conseiller Denis.
So I just want to say that, and I am begrudgingly agreeing to 2%, and I do not want to relitigate line by line. I actually agree with these. So I am actually agreeing to disagree, and if we are going to go back through line by line, it's going to be a problem. Thank you.
Yeah, and the issue of going back line by line is off the table. We're not dealing with the issue of all of us dealing with the budget process line by line. We spend so many meetings doing that. But throughout the process, there might be issues that individuals require clarification or that they challenge a specific issue. If you have any of that, you submit it to the CEO. He's going to put a synopsis together. At our next budget meeting, we're going to have that list of synopsis, and we're going to have to go walk through it and get to an agreement. And that will determine the budget for 2021. Conseiller Denis?
With due respect, Madam Mayor, I don't agree. I think if we have issues, whether it's line by line, we can discuss them as adults, as a council. Why do we need to send that to staff and for them to make a list of what we want or what we need? It's up to us to find the means to do it. And I think we should discuss it live and not have this come and go between the staff and the council. I think we should discuss it ongoingly and see where we can go. But otherwise, how are we going to send that to the CAO and then back to us, then back to him? Like, I think council needs to keep control of the taxes here. So I don't agree with it. I think we should discuss that as adults.
Conseil Denis, the issue will be discussed in an open meeting. It's not going to be going back and forth. If there are issues in the budget that you don't agree with, put your list together, submit the list. And then we're going to be discussing that list at council. If there's anything else, we're going to discuss it at council. And at least we're not going to be all over the place. We're going to deal with those issues. Conseil Denis?
What's the difference from doing it as we go? Why do we need to send a list to the CAO for him to tell us what we need? Like,
No.
it doesn't make sense to me. Let's discuss it as councillors and see where we can go. Why this noise?
Okay.
I'm against it anyway, so that's all.
Conseil Lise?
No, I understand what Conseiller Denis is saying. I think maybe what the big picture is that sitting down here today and start with the global budget going line by line, we don't need to do that because part of it has already been approved. I think what we've been asked, we will be asked to do, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that, for example, if I want Bélanger Street not to happen, to put it down, which it's been approved 2 years ago. So obviously I will not do that. So, and say why I don't. So if I have other issue, I will send it in writing and say whatever that I pick that I don't want, I don't approve what's been presented in the budget only. And it's not going to be every line of the budget. And after that, it will be discussed publicly. Because right now, if we go line by line, that's mean we're starting from first line on the paper and going through that. And that's not the case because most of it, we had to prove it. So we need to put on paper what I don't feel that should be, that Conseiller Revida feel that he should not be there if there's anything, or you, Conseiller Denis. I think that's what Jay is proposing right now and to be discussed publicly.
Madam Mayor, if I can just, and it's just procedural, if you're going to start debating back and forth on this, I think you had a fair question. The issue is I'm looking at this thing strategically for those councillors. And if you would have gone the way you're thinking of going right now, you basically would have gotten a 4-4 line item dead. Then where do you go? So I'm trying to move this thing forward. And the way we move this thing forward, and the idea that it comes to the CAO for packaging is no different than your entire budget of what you've asked me to do for the last 2 meetings. If somebody don't, to have a council or a budget without the role of staff, I'm sure that's not the implication because that's ludicrous. So, I think it's, do you want to do it that way so you can have a fruitful discussion on issues that you actually have concern over as opposed to going over and wasting oxygen? Thanks.
Conseiller Chris, Conseiller Dan.
So I just wanted to mention to these, when I said about Bélanger Street, I was being sardonic, sarcastic, I was making a point. I didn't actually mean what I said. And I realized some people don't take my sarcasm very well, but I didn't mean it. It was to make a point. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, Conseiller Chris, thank you for highlighting that. But then it's been referenced many times, the capital work projects, for the exception of the add-ons, which needs to be approved, right? Or have already been approved, and we gave direction to staff to proceed in doing the legwork that they need to do. And Bélanger Street is part of that. So that's moving forward. Conseiller Dan, Conseiller Rowley.
I was just going to try to clarify the point that I tried to make when I was talking about the health unit. Denis, it did work. Basically what you did is if you thought of something that was not proper and that you wanted to have a div in it, you wrote it up. And then you didn't waste time having staff coming back and saying, well, I didn't know the answer to that question, so I have to wait till another meeting. That's the process. The process is you ask your question, then they have a chance to look at it and then provide a synopsis of it. That's it. And it works well. I'll tell you, I thought it would work very well. It was efficient.
Conseil Rowley?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's one comment that Councillor Denis mentioned that I agree with, is if we could come back and deal with this as adult, not as vengeful or trying to take things away from one councillor, if we could come to an agreement and do what we are elected to do, represent West Nipissing, and the best of it, and also trust staff. So that is my comment. Denis, you were right. We need to be adult on this.
And I'm going to say one final time, Conseil Rowley, because the issue of trust has been identified many times. And I don't think anyone around this table has invested all this time and energy and is making reference that there's no trust. You know what, when it comes to the parameters of, I think it's getting to an agreement of what we're willing to increase and what are going to be the priorities that are going to be set by council. So we need to come to term for a decision. I agree with that, but the issue of trust, it becomes, you know, every time that there's questions or maybe disagreements or that we're not on the same page, it doesn't mean that we don't trust.
It was mentioned, Madam Mayor, by one councillor that they don't trust staff. It was mentioned, so.
You know what? The issue has been highlighted several times today, and I keep on clarifying it, and I will keep on clarifying it. So I think there's a sense of agreement here to move forward. Anything that we have as far as questions or that we don't agree with, there'll be the opportunity of members of council to submit their requests to our CEO and to be able to come back with the synopsis at our next meeting, which will be packaged, which we're going to be discussing in an open meeting, and that we're going to have to make decisions. And I see a nod ahead with that. Now, Jay, would there be a deadline date by which, if there's any information to send your way as far as questions or as far as contingency issues, is there a deadline date by which any members of council need to send you this?
I don't want to ask the question because it'll be a 45-minute discussion about how much time do you need. So how about we just say next Wednesday? By next Wednesday, if I can get
Well,
there.
our next meeting is April 7th at 6.
Yeah, no, that was it. Sorry, Your Worship, that's no longer available to us. So I was going to indicate to you that we have to go and find new meetings. That was picked early on, but then there's staffing issues and other operational issues that preclude me from doing that. So,
Okay.
So
if
we
the
will
7th
send out a notice for future meetings. And I apologize for that, Madam Mayor.
Okay, well, I do know that subsequent to the 7th, I believe it was earmarked for the 14th of April. Does anyone have their calendar pertaining to meetings?
Madam Mayor, shouldn't it be fast?
Pardon?
Like, shouldn't it be faster than that? Like the 14th of April? Like, we're going to be into June and we won't have our budget approved.
No, I
last
think
year-
I think
last
that's the best
year-
we can do.
Yeah,
Is that-
last
that's
year, we approved the budget in May, if I'm not mistaken. So if we have a meeting on the 14th, we're going to work through that document, and that'll be the final step to our budget. But I believe, I'm not too sure, I just kept note of the next meeting. So we'll have a reminder, I believe, if no one has the schedule of the.
I got the schedule.
So what is the next date after the 7th of April?
The 7 was scheduled and then the 14 was scheduled. So
Okay.
it's been all along. So the 14 should be the date that we look at it. And there's anything, well, Jay, you can bring it back. But I mean, that's what we had. And the 7, obviously, it's not possible as Jay
Okay,
said.
thank you, Conseil Elise. You provided an answer, so it's the 14th. So what Jay has identified, if we can send everything to his attention by next Wednesday, which would be the 7th of April, and it'll provide the opportunity to be able to package it and for members of council to receive it prior to the meeting. Now, is it realistic? When can council expect the package of all of this if we aim for the 14th?
If you, let's assume that you are able to come to a consensus where you think you can get a vote. Then the week after, we can have a resolution adopting the expenditure levels at that point.
Okay. But for the package, the synopsis of either.
Oh, when can you get it? Well, it depends how extensive it is, but I imagine it's a cut and paste job with some answers from us. So I can get it to you probably by the Friday of next week, end of Friday. If not, perhaps the Monday, if, of the week
Okay.
after, but 2
As
days.
long
in
as we get
advance.
48 hours to look at it, I think it's
Okay.
acceptable.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Councilor Elise. So, okay, so just to recap, next Wednesday, the 7th, send everything to Jay's time limit, the 7th. They'll package it. Hopefully we get it on the Friday, if not at the Monday, and we have our meeting set for the 14th of April. So we're all in agreement with that? Okay. And before we conclude, are we going to be, and here's a question, will we be adopting a resolution for the budget for municipal taxes before we work through the budget for water and sewer and solid waste like we've done in the past?
You don't have to. I'm not going to put anything on the council agenda that you don't want. So if you want to put it in the first meeting of May for then the end of April, we'll have an environmental services and sewer and water meeting as well. And depending on how quickly, we'll be ready by the 14th for those as well. So depending on how quickly the 14th proceeds, we might be able to use some of that amount. But, I think at the latest, you should be able to come to a consensus for the first meeting in May for a budget.
Okay, perfect. And is it realistic that we're going to get also the information for the levy for the hospital for the CT scanner for the 14th of April? Or
Yes.
is that going to be a separate resolution?
No, that'll be, and that'll be part of this as well. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions or points of clarification? None? So that means this ends the budget meeting for today. Is there a mover and a seconder for the resolution to adjourn? Conseiller Burley, Conseiller Chris.
Is moved by Councillor Larrabee and seconded by Councillor Fisher. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2021-25 being a bylaw of the West Nipissing Municipality to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on the 31st of March, 2021 shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Any objections? Aucune objection? None? Carried. Adopté.
Is moved by Councillor Larrabee and seconded by Councillor Fisher. Be it resolved that the budget meeting of council held on March 31st, 2021 be adjourned.
All in favor? Carried. Adopté. So this concludes our budget meeting until April 14th. Thank you. Merci. And have a great evening.